going on and just enjoy the performance, but also have a mind to see if we can spot examples of these 6 things as we go through it, okay? So we're looking for simplicity, we're looking for unexpected elements, concrete information, how credible he is, and what the storytelling's like, okay? So that's the plan. The video is around about 4 or 5 minutes. It's quite an interesting country, so you might. So we've been having some sound difficulties, but we'll give it a try. Can we get the lights off as well to show the video? Hopefully it will work, and then it'll all be good. Let's just have a look. So if I click on that, sound has been the trouble.
Visualization is right at the heart of my own work too. I teach global health, and I know having the data is not enough. I have to show it in ways people both enjoy and understand. Now, I'm going to try something I've never done before. Animating the data in real space, with a bit of technical assistance from the crew. So, here we go. First, an axis for health. Life expectancy, from 25 years to 75 years. And down here, an axis for wealth. Income per person, $400, $4,000, and $40,000. So down here is poor and sick, and up here is rich and healthy. Now I'm going to show you the world 200 years ago, in 1810. Here come all the countries. Europe brown, Asia red, Middle East green, Africa south of Sahara blue, and the Americas yellow. And the size of the country bubbles show the size of the population. And in 1810, it was pretty crowded down there, wasn't it? All countries were sick and poor. Life expectancy were below 40 in all countries. And only UK and the Netherlands were slightly better off, but not much. And now, I start the world. The Industrial Revolution makes countries in Europe and elsewhere move away from the rest. The colonized countries in Asia and Africa, they are stuck down there. And eventually, the Western countries get healthier and healthier. And now, we slow down to show the impact of the First World War and the Spanish flu epidemic. What a catastrophe! And now I speed up through the 1920s and the 1930s. And in spite of the Great Depression, Western countries forge on towards greater wealth and health. Japan and some others try to follow, but most countries stay down here. Now, after the tragedies of the Second World War, we stop a bit to look at the world in 1948. 1948 was a great year. The war was over, Sweden topped the medal table at the Winter Olympics, and I was born. But the differences between the countries of the world was wider than ever. United States was in the front, Japan was catching up. Brazil was way behind, Iran was getting a little richer from oil, but still had short lives. And the Asian giants, China, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Indonesia, they were still poor and sick down here. But look what is about to happen. Here we go again. In my lifetime, former colonies gained independence, and then finally they started to get healthier and healthier and healthier. And in the 1970s, then countries in Asia and Latin America started to catch up with the Western countries. They became the emerging economies. Some in Africa follows. Some Africans were stuck in civil war and others hit by HIV. And now we can see the world today in the most up-to-date statistics. Most people today live in the middle. But there are huge differences at the same time between the best of countries and the worst of countries. And there are also huge inequalities within countries. These bubbles show country averages, but I can split them. Take China, I can split it into provinces. There goes Shanghai. It has the same wealth and health as Italy today. And there is the poor inland province Guizhou. It is like Pakistan. And if I split it further, the rural parts are like Ghana in Africa. And yet, despite the enormous disparities today, we have seen 200 years of remarkable progress. That huge historical gap between the West and the rest is now closing. we have become an entirely new converging world. And I see a clear trend into the future. With aid, trade, green technology and peace, it's fully possible that everyone can make it to the healthy, wealthy corner. Well, what you just seen in the last few minutes is a story of 200 countries shown over 200 years and beyond. It involved plotting of 120,000 numbers. Pretty neat, huh?
Thank you. Can we have the lights back up, please? Okay, maybe not. Okay, so what did you think?
Because all the elements that we just listed up are memorable communication.
Sorry, say again?
It has all the elements that were just listed below memorable communication.
Yeah, give me some examples then.
For example, it was put forward in very simple words everybody could understand. We are not public health people.
Let's just click these back up.
Understood.
Okay, so you understood all the language.
Yeah, very simple, no jargon.
Yeah.
Then it was some unexpected stuff like the movements, how there is a war that appears or a Armageddon.
Okay.
It's a sudden movement in.
Okay, so the movements you weren't expecting
The
them.
data was of course concrete and very clearly put on an XY axis graph, which is very easy to understand.
Yeah, I like the size of the bubbles being the population. That's really neat, concrete detail, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry, say again?
It was emotional because comparing with
Yeah.
wealthy country and
Yeah.
It's a positive thought that things are moving.
More expressive.
Yeah, it's very expressive. He's a great speaker, actually. So who followed India in the thing? You've got an easy one to spot, haven't you? It's the second biggest bubble. Sorry? The creativity, you like that?
The speaker's background.
Oh, credibility. Yeah.
In the end, he told the data collection with the total number of data points.
Yeah. Healthy life is related to income. Yeah, maybe. It's kind of intriguing, wasn't it? So the emotional element's really good. So it's nice when you're part of the story, isn't it? So you guys got a mention. It's not a good mention to start with, was it? You were down in the corner when he mentioned you. But now it's improving. But it's kind of interesting. So when you become part of the story, you're compelled. That's really useful to know. I was kind of intrigued to how it would be, because I've never obviously shown this video in India before. But it's kind of interesting. Interesting as well, it was stopped in 1948, which I guess is around about a significant time for India too. That was a significant time in Europe. It's kind of intriguing. When we're part of the story, we buy into it. So it's a really good way of getting that emotional connection, just by making someone else part of the story, in whatever way. You were just a bubble on the graph, but it buys you into the story. Okay, so let's have some examples then. So what was simple? What was the simplicity?
Statistic that was explained was straightforward. It was talking about our total population in terms of size of bubbles.
Okay.
And the axis showed what was the life expectancy and income on the.
So each aspect of that was a simple phrase. This is life expectancy, this is wealth, this is population. 3 things, that's all he mentioned. It's a great story for just 3 bits of information, which is kind of really nice. Okay, so simplicity. What was unexpected? The what in the data? The trend. The trend in the data was unexpected.
How each of the country groups move.
Yeah.
You know, like how industrial revolution suddenly pumped up Western world, and then how Asian countries followed, how African countries still stayed back.
For me, that wasn't unexpected because that we knew.
Okay.
So it's unexpected thing, the way they show the needs, that is
As they evolve.
way of representing them.
Yeah, okay.
That was unexpected, not the data itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So it can, people are unexpected by different things, it's good to know.
The breaking up of China in provinces, that was unexpected.
Okay, so we get this kind of breakdown. It's not just China, it's Guizhou, it's Shanghai. Okay, we got all this
It's
different
dynamic, changing in a single row, rather than showing different colors.
Yeah.
It's unexpected.
In fact, imagine what that would have been like.
Series of graphs.
Yeah.
Years. He's a bit bored. That's great, yeah. So it's all these unexpected elements. How about concrete?
The data was quite straightforward. It was not abstract. Consider population, we know what is population, number of persons living. We know what is life expectancy, and we know what is the income. So the statistics that were being explained were like hard concepts. Amount of money, amount of years a person lives, and number of persons.
These graphs. Yeah, these kind of graphs are great for this concrete idea because size is something we can sense. So what's the population of India right now? 1.27 billion. Okay. The population of the UK is around about 60 million. So those are both abstract numbers and they're quite hard to rationalise. But big circle, small circle makes perfect sense. We can just see how much bigger India is just from the size of the bubble. The numbers are quite hard to rationalise. We know what millions and billions are, but what does that actually mean? The size of the bubbles are really important, which I really liked. I like that concrete idea of turning numbers into movement as well. When we've got the population drops on the walls, you say however many people die, that's just a number. That plummet makes you go, oh, that connects you in really different ways to the information. How about credibility?
Because the speaker himself, you know, that when you explain to the speaker, credible expert on a given subject, he end of the presentation he told how much number of data points were analyzed, and such. So he gave, where the statistics comes from.
So you've never heard of this guy before, but you believe him.
Facts with added to substantiate his argument.
Okay. That's why he demonstrated his expertise. He added stuff that we knew to be true, so we could make sense of it. And he kind of added some background story behind how we got to it.
We could correlate his data with what we know of the historical events of the whole. Oh yes, this year was the Great War or Great Famine, and
The reason she gave is reason also.
These kind of concrete facts can be really useful in helping our credibility. That just by saying, what's in 200,000 data points, makes you kind of think, oh, okay, that makes sense. I understand where that's come from now. Whereas just saying, here's the data doesn't tell us a different story. How about emotional? We do with that.
Development.
More like emotional. Because since India is there, so we are being connected to it.
it was quite a good positive feeling that things are moving in a better direction, in a good pace. Especially towards the end of the presentation, the pace of things going in the better end of the graph was quite dramatic.
Yeah, it's a great lesson. So that
The emotion is just connecting to human. That's all it is. And that can be all kinds of things. From, oh, that's my country, to, oh, where I'm wealthy, or to, that's sad, and population drops. All those kind of things are just human connections. They don't have to be profound. It can just be as interesting as saying, well, we're Indian. So we're bought into that process because we want to see where my country goes. It's kind of interesting. And you get these kind of things about people get bought into it, so they're proud. So even at the beginning, 200 years ago, the UK was doing really well. I wasn't even born when good old UK news. And you get the, look how better India is now than it was 200 years ago. So you get those little connections, which are really good. How about stories? Yeah, that's what he says at the end, isn't it? There's a story of 200 years of development. It tells you it's a story. It's nice. There's lots of little stories going on in there as well. So what year was he born in? 1948. We use this stuff to make those memorable things. It's kind of interesting. So that's just telling us he was born in 1948. It gives us emotional stuff, gives us credibility, gives us a point of connection in our story, which is really, really useful. Don't just go and tell everyone that he was born. The story. It's very similar to 1975. People don't care. But if it fits the story, it really makes a difference, doesn't it? Okay, so should we play around with some of these concepts for our own stuff? Okay. Let's go for simplicity first. This is an interesting one. I'm going to set you a challenge. Okay. We mentioned Twitter earlier. A few of you use Twitter. So how much space are we allowed on Twitter? 140 characters. 140 characters. Okay. So do any of you use SMS messages? Yes. Okay, what's the limit for SMS messages? 160. 160. Okay. So should we go for SMS? Buy ourselves a little bit more space. Okay. So we're going to write an SMS message that describes our PhD. So we need to get everything that describes our research into 160 characters. You can do it on your mobile phones if you wish. If you don't, we have low-tech mobile phones here. You don't want that on your mobile phones. So your challenge is to condense understand it. You can't just, we've talked about acronyms and abbreviations and stuff earlier on, so it needs to be meaningful. Ideally your supervisor will be able to read that and say, yeah, that's their work. So that sound like a good challenge? Okay. If you are doing it on your phone, we are going to be sharing these as well, so you'll need to pass your phone to someone else.
So if you're really precious about your phone, write it down on a piece of paper. It's easier to check the characters on your phone, but this also is fine. So whichever way works. So how much time would you like to condense the complexities of your research into 160 characters? 2 minutes? 2 minutes? That's the first time someone's not said 5 minutes. It's good. Let's go for 5 minutes. We'll see how it goes on. So write them and then we'll do some swapping around, okay? So I'd always go for writing it so it doesn't depend on the background of the person, because you can fill that bit in later.
But when we know, then we can know better.
Yeah. But if you've got like a nice simple catch-all, like the newspaper headline that you can say to anyone, so you say it to someone you meet at the conference who doesn't know your field, they'll get what you mean, and then you can explain from there. But you can say it to your professor, they still recognise it as your work, and you could fill in the details later. So they'll say, tell me a bit more about that, or a little bit more about this, so you can tailor it for your audience, but the headline thing should be pretty universal. That's what you'd be aiming for. You could, I suppose, have one of these for every single possible audience, but it takes more time. It's better to just have one. Trust your knowledge, your expertise will be there no matter how simple that is.
That's Parkinson's, everybody Parkinson's, not even Parkinson's disease, Parkinson's and what happened. The general scaffolds of themselves to transplantation in the brain. No, not even Parkinson's, Parkinson's as common. I don't think okay, we are done.
Good. So you've got it nailed. You've got it perfect. Okay, so let's see your edited one with the Parkinson's then.
Okay, so the suggestion was to, first of all, according to your suggestion, I removed the peptide part because anyway,
Yeah.
and he suggested not to mention the hydro.
I don't know what are hydrogels. I know what are hydrogels, but as a common person, I don't know.
No.
Gel is good enough for me to know.
Yeah.
So finally it's like engineering gels for stem cell transplantation for treating Parkinson's disease.
Okay.
Instead of putting
Yeah.
disease brain, Parkinson's itself is enough a term for me to understand, because
It
this
should
is
be,
a-
yeah.
I have Parkinson's or I have Alzheimer's, so that is good for treating Parkinson's.
Yeah, and even that, I'd want to know a little bit more about the story. Are you going to cure Parkinson's? Are you going to treat it? Are you going to make...
Yeah, with our final target is to find a stem cell based cure for
Cure.
Parkinson's.
So that would be the thing I'd sell. Yeah.
We are
So,
doing scaffolds.
okay.
This is how I have written it. I work on the composition of...
I'd put, can stem cells cure Parkinson's? That'd be the question. Can stem cells cure Parkinson's disease? I'm using hydrogels to find out, or whatever. That's the way I'd phrase it. Because that's the big question, isn't it? That's going to compel someone a bit more than I am studying this. So ask them a question.
Yeah, so first thing we need to, people who are reading that, okay, can they do it, then I'll write.
Yeah, if you ask questions, often people get curious about, oh, can they? He's the one who's trying to find out whether the stem cells can cure Parkinson's. It makes a difference. Hold up. Is this your edited one? Okay. What are granules like tablets? What does that mean? What kind of medical tablets?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what? So is this a manufacturing process?
Yeah.
You're making granules, and you want to. Okay. Okay. You're trying to improve the process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you might. Yeah. It's a little bit clunky, I guess, in terms of. Yeah. It's a bit. It takes me a bit of a while to think about what exactly is going on. Have a look. Okay, better. Yeah, a lot better. I like catastrophic cracking. That's a nice description. Yeah, because it makes you think, I don't want my plane to fall to pieces, which is kind of what you like. Yeah, okay. Better. Okay, how are we doing? How are you guys doing? You okay? Yeah. Okay, so let's give these new things that we've just created a little bit of a field test, okay? Because we're going to talk to people at lunchtime, and they're probably going to ask us what you're researching. So let's give ourselves a field test. So we're going to put our phones away and all our crib notes, because we can remember what we've written, because it was memorable. So I know that you've done a memorable thing. So a really simple task. We're just going to do a bit of network practice to get us in the spirit for lunchtime as well. So we'll stand up, we'll go and find someone else to talk to, and you're going to ask them, what are you researching? And they'll tell you this pithy thing that they've just come up with. If you have questions that you want to know more, ask them those, but not for too long, and then just swap round. So what are you researching? So this will be a 2-minute conversation, so it's a really short conversation, just about the research stuff, okay? And then try it out on a few people. I just kind of want to see where your little message that you've created, how effective it is at getting people on board, okay? So just try it out on a few people. We're all friends now, because we've worked together a little while, so if someone tells you a load of rubbish, say, you need to make that a bit more clear, okay? So help each other out so that the thing we say makes sense and is compelling. Does that make sense? So stand up, mill around, talk to different people, just a couple of minutes, then find someone else to talk to. A good chance to test this out. I want you to test it on at least 5 people. So really test the thoroughness of this thing. See what it's like to keep saying the same thing over again, because this will help you edit it. And we'll come back to them in a minute. So let's give ourselves 5 people worth 2 minutes, so 10 minutes. We'll see how we get on in 10 minutes. Is that okay? 10 minutes worth of chatting about your research. So give it a try. I just heard from the last one, from Sushra, I heard a really good metaphor which kind of gave me some good unexpectedness. He described his work as being a noodle soup of copper wires, and I really love that. It's a great image to work with. I can actually
the method for treating Parkinson's disease, which is a very
okay.
disease that affects the old age and across populations, across countries.
So that would be like an emotional thing. It connects us, okay.
Aged population.
So if you medical applications are great for the emotional thing, it makes life a little bit easy. So my medical imaging thing worked with esophageal cancer. Okay, so it was really easy for me to speak to the people who were giving my charity money. Not least because esophageal cancer generally happens to men who are about 50, who tend to be overweight, eat and drink a lot, and possibly smoke. Most of the funding people who came into my charity were all men who were about 50, overweight, who really liked to. So it was a really easy emotional journey for me to be able to make that connection. I used to do something unexpected and concrete for them as well. You know where the esophagus is, right? The bit your food goes down into your stomach. I used to make my funders feel sick, and that way they used to give us money. This is kind of how it used to work. So I'd talk to them about esophageal cancer and how it closed up your esophagus, and you couldn't eat that steak dinner, and you had to feed through a tube. They didn't like this, because they liked their dinners. And I got them to press their thumb onto there. Not too hard, try it. Not too hard, just press your thumb here. Because this is what it feels like when your esophagus starts closing up. Okay, this is a concrete thing. If they don't believe you, they feel sick and they want their dinner. They give us money. It's a really good way of doing it. So Parkinson's was a good thing. Okay.
Unconventional energy generation. Yeah.
Say that again.
Unconventional energy generation.
Okay, unconventional energy generation. Okay, who's doing that? So what's unconventional about it?
Solar energy.
Solar energy. Okay. Solar energy, is that big in India? Solar energy?
Brain is catching up nowadays.
Yeah.
A lot of research is going on.
Yeah.
There must be sun here sometimes.
Not sometimes, most of the time.
Most of the time. That's good. So I live in the UK. I have solar panels on my house.
Okay.
Yeah. So solar panels are good. We like these things. And they even work in the winter in the UK. Not so well, but they work okay. They heat up my hot water. Yes.
My friend Shubhrakanti talks about power generation using a very small, portable, low-cost power generator for remote area applications for rural folks who have
Okay.
no access to electricity or they can't even light a bulb in their homes.
Oh, great stuff.
This
So
stuff is portable, works on very some small stream of water.
great stuff. This is your stuff. Yeah. Fantastic. So we've got the big solar panel stuff, and then we've got this rural portable stuff. I like that connection to the rural populations and the low power too. Yeah. What else?
Getting medical data from the patient without disturbing them and evaluating at any place of our interest.
Okay, this is interesting. So you get medical data from them without them even knowing?
Without disturbing them.
Oh, without disturbing them. Okay.
Examples.
Okay.
All the data and evaluating at any place of our interest.
Okay.
Data will reach us.
And you had some possible medical stuff as well. So this is kind of interesting. This undisturbed
So
diagnosis.
the patient is not made to lie in a
Yeah.
MRI machine.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Automatic feeling of corrosion and scratching
Okay.
by nanoparticles.
Okay. So automatic healing. Just those two words make you go.
Smart coatings.
Smart coatings. Okay. Nice.
So
See, smart coatings isn't as exciting as automatic healing.
Smart coatings is a better word to be selling.
No, not really, because I don't know what smart coatings are or how effective they are, but I know what wounds are
You
like.
can say self-healing coatings.
Self-healing's good, yeah. Okay. So it's the healing bit that's going to connect it to me. Smart coatings is abstract. I want something that makes me better. That'll be working. Okay. So lots of good stuff.
Yeah, one interesting one by WIC is that is going to convert some fuel gas that liberates from the burning of CO2
Okay.
and it will convert into usable gas like LPG.
Okay. So we can make fuel. Real stuff. Okay.
From a pollution gas.
Yeah.
So you convert, you take away the pollutant and you make a usable fuel of
So turn pollution into fuel. There's our headline. That's good. That's what you're doing. I'm turning pollution into fuel. This is great stuff. So I work with thousands of researchers all over the place, and everyone's doing interesting stuff. That's why it's research. We're kind of all doing interesting PhDs. The trick is just finding that way of communicating it that gets people excited and on board. And you've been doing a great job this morning at doing that. Okay, so we've started to be able to tell this very short story about what our research is about. If you can engage each other like this and go, oh, that's interesting, that's exciting, you're going to be able to do it to other people. So just keep practicing this idea of telling your story briefly. It'll get better. Be able to tell the story really quickly and easily, really fluidly. Practice is a great thing. I want to tell you a very small story because I gave you 160 characters, so that's quite long. One that fits in simplicity. Well, it fits in a few of these. A story by a famous writer called Ernest Hemingway. You ever heard of Ernest Hemingway?
Yeah.
Okay. So Ernest Hemingway was a great writer, but also a great drinker. He spent a lot of time in bars getting drunk and carousing and telling stories. And someone set him a challenge, because he was also a gambler. And they set him a challenge to test his abilities as a writer. They said, can you write a novel in 6 words? Okay. And Ernest Hemingway had had a few drinks, so he accepted the challenge. And apparently Ernest Hemingway said this was the best story he ever wrote. Okay. Would you like to hear the 6-word story by Ernest Hemingway and see if it hits any of these buttons? So it just simply said, for sale, baby shoes, never worn. For sale, baby shoes, never worn.
Super.
6 words.
Fantastic.
But it connects you to it in a strange way. Okay, so let's think about how we can add to this storytelling stuff. Okay, I'm just going to skip a couple of slides ahead. I don't need that again. Okay, when you started writing your SMS messages, you'll have kind of done a familiar journey, I guess. We tend to write stories in this kind of layered way. We tend to start with what. We even ask that question, what are you researching, don't we? So if you look through your SMS stuff that you wrote, it's probably got some what stuff up front. Okay, I'm researching this thing. And then we might fill in some of the details about how that works. And then at the end, we end up with why. Ajay, yours started like this when we first got to it, didn't it? You have the application right at the very end. Okay, it's kind of intriguing that we do it this way round. How do newspapers tell stories?
Yeah, headline followed by summary, what they want to say.
Yeah. We do it kind of slightly the different way around. There's another example we might be able to use. This is from work by a guy called Simon Sinek, who's interested in market relations and advertising and things like that. And he uses a really good example of Microsoft versus Apple and how they tell stories. Okay. He says Microsoft tells stories like this. They say, we make computers. They might have this much processing power. You can put them on your desk and work at home. Do you want to buy one? So that's how Microsoft tells stories. They tell us about the processing power and all this kind of stuff. There's lots of what and how in there. How do Apple advertise? They go, you'll be cool if you buy our products. That's what Apple do, and you fall for it. You bought an iPhone. You're advertised by Apple. They go, you'll be a cool, hip individual because you've got an iPhone. Other phone manufacturers might just tell you about how many megapixels the camera is, or how much data you get, or whatever. Apple just sell you the lifestyle. You'll be this kind of person if you buy our products. We love it. We buy Apple products. They start with why. You'll be cool. And then they might tell us some information about how Apple products work. And then they might give you some technical details right at the end. But we don't care. It's the why we're interested in. So Simon Sinek's stuff is that we should flip how we tell stories and do it the other way around. So normally we'd start with this. Detail, complexity, making sure people understand. That's what we kind of try and do almost, isn't it? No, it's stem cells. It's, what were they called? Hydrogel peptides, or peptide hydrogels. You fill in lots of the technical details first, and I'm like, whoa. And then right at the end, you went Parkinson's disease. I was like, oh, right, okay. The other way around. Right, lots of this, explaining methodology, all this kind of stuff. Did anyone hear some methodological stuff? I heard fluid flows and composite layering and all kinds of stuff going on. There's loads of this kind of stuff. But so what? Why is it interesting? Why should a human being care that you're researching this thing? And we heard loads of great examples. So we had Parkinson's disease, so that's important. We had rural communities who need power. All this why stuff. We had people who don't want to be defrauded, okay? So they can spend more money on Apple products. So we had all this kind of stuff. We had cheap cooling. We had all kinds of purpose. It all came at the end. So let's see if we can work at flipping it around. Do it this way around. So starting with the passion of why this research is being funded. Did you ever think about that? Someone's paying for your research to be done. There's a kind of higher purpose behind this. Why are you studying the thing that you're studying? Someone's funded it, someone's decided that's a great thing. Some open government's decided that's a great thing. You're all doing STEM subjects, which are what gets the money, largely because of the why. We build stuff, we make stuff happen that's really important to the world. So start with that passion. Start with why you're researching it as well. People might want to ask you questions about that. to. This is a way of doing it, by the way, where we're doing it for our job applications, but we can do it about our research as well. So if this was a job interview, for example, or you wanted to get employers business, we can still use the same model. I want to work for this company because I want to work for Apple. So they make me, I know you work for Microsoft, don't you? You want to work for Microsoft because of whatever reason you would want to work for Microsoft. I don't know what that is. They give you jumpers, presumably. Is that your reason? I don't know. The how stuff is how we can contribute to their needs. So you can use the RDF stuff for this if you want. But this is kind of what employers want to hear. What's it going to be like to employ this passionate person I've just heard about? What are they going to do for me? And then you can fill in the best. Oh, by the way, I've got a PhD. You don't need that up front. Because most people will sell that story first, right? If you think about it. Most people go for that argument. So I've studied for a PhD at IIT, the acronym that I've learned over the last couple of days. And then I'm studying this and this, and I like your company because of whatever. We want to hear it the other way around. So try this when we're next doing employer stuff. Let's try a storyboard for our research. I want to stick in our research for a while because you've been doing lots of research stuff. We'll get to the other stuff in a while. And we haven't tapped into your artistic temperaments for a little while. You've been doing lots of writing and thinking and word stuff. I want us to go for this start with why idea for our research. But slightly flip it around. Do you remember earlier we drew someone else's research? Okay, we're going to go back to our own right now and draw our own research, but not in the kind of way that you did before. I want you to thread it as a story. We talked about how we should thread a story. We're going to use a device from Disney. Okay? You all know Disney, right? Yeah. So Disney did lots of great creative stuff, but he invented the storyboard. Do we know what a storyboard is? Okay. Yeah, so a series of distinct stages that tell the story from start to finish. Okay? So we'll start up here with why your research is being done, and then we'll move on through the hows and whats if need be, just to tell a coherent story of what your research is. I'm going to get you to do it with no words again, because we've just done lots of words. You already know what they are. So let's see if we can illustrate it in a different way. I'm going to give you a bit more space than you have now. I've got some big paper here. It's a bit buried. Let me just dig it out. Right, let's see. Right, could you begin, rip one off and pass it around, so we should end up with a big piece of paper each. Hopefully there'll be enough. Next time I have to go small. So what you're going to do, get some pens, find a space to work, because it's a bit crowded. So we've got a big space in the room, so find somewhere to work. And you're just going to draw a storyboard of your research. It tells the whole story just in pictures, okay? Be easier for some of you than others. You've got loads of information to help you along with this. So we've had the practice of someone else drawing your work. So we've got some ideas from that and we'll know what works. We've had the practice of telling our story through words and making it short. This will allow us to fill out the details a little bit. Some of you had more than one story on the go. So you had a couple of threads going along in your work. Sim, you had a couple of threads going along. This is just choose one story. Okay, it's easier to just tell that linear thing. We've got some good examples to use as well. We've got the Hans Rosling video. Do you remember that? And think about how he threaded that story. You can imagine writing the storyboard for that thing. So we started off with population health. Okay, so we started off with the why. We need to know what's happened over the last 200 years. So we'll then use wealth. We'll use life expectancy. We'll use size of the population. So it was really clearly threaded, his story. And then we'll see how it moves. We'll bring in things like the First World War, but every stage of that was linear. There was no tangents going off all the way. You could easily thread out that story in probably 8 to 10 boxes of story. So try the same thing with your research. Does that make sense? Yeah? It makes sense? Okay. So we'll end up with a room full of little storyboards of research, okay? Which will just give us extra tools to be able to talk about our stuff. I gave you some pens yesterday. I don't know where they all went. Oh, you've got them in the bags. Okay, so you've got some pens. That would be great. There's a few more at the front if you want to borrow some of these. I'll just stick them here and you can come and grab what you need.
don't know completely yet, but they could be assessed.
Yeah, I've got it from when we come back. Nothing to do before the break.
Yeah, because people may leave and they won't come back.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine, no worries. Okay, I'm going to pause you wherever you are. Some of you have finished, some of you are still going, which is kind of perfectly normal. So what we've effectively done here is we've written our thesis. This is what you've done. You've written your thesis in graphic form. It's kind of an interesting concept to do. So if you just take this along to your Viva, then you'll be fine. Hand this in at the office. I'm sure you'll get your PhD. Funnily enough, in the US, a thesis was published this year in graphic novel form. Kind of intriguing. And you can actually get extracts from it from the internet. It's kind of a really interesting thing, which is doing exactly this, telling a whole thesis worth of story as a storyboard, which is interesting. So you have certain boxes on there, and there'll be bits missing, of course, because you're doing more than 10 minutes worth of research. But this is a really interesting concept to play around with, and it really helps by drawing it to get your mind into different ways of communicating it. Okay. We have to explore different concepts when we take words away, which is really valuable, and that helps us explain it to other people and get into different concepts. So keep playing with this as we go past. So time's moving on towards lunch, and in a little while we're going to be going off to get some food, but also to talk to other people. Now, Indy, our resident expert networker, you might have noticed he's not been here for most of the morning. He's been going off on a fact-finding mission to try and set the scene of the conference and to give us some tips about what's going on over there to help us with what's going on, to help us facilitate the networking. So yesterday I asked you what were your objectives for the networking. So what are people's plans? What do we want to do in the networking session? Talking to other people. Did anyone come up with anything?
Meet new people.
So meet new people. That's easy. There's probably some out there. So just meet them. Yes?
Shortlisted about 2 to 3 persons from the domain that I'm working in.
Okay.
And I want to showcase my what I've developed till now.
Okay.
To ask for collaboration for having a scale up at that.
So you want to find people who are in your field and try and negotiate with them. Okay. What other kind of stuff do we want?
Sir, I wanted to take my
You want to get yourself hired? Okay, well we'll have to see who's there. You might end up with that might be possible, but you might end up with a crap job. We'll see.
I have one query regarding that 2-hour networking session or plus lunch. Do they have also 2-hour break? We can't talk to them during the...
Indy's going to fill us in on the technical details of what the process is. So, but yeah.
Talk to them when something is going on.
It's a good point, and Indy will clarify that one for you. Anything else we want? No? Okay. So Indy's just going to give us a bit of a heads up. And when he's done, we have from the British Council some feedback forms which they would like you to fill in before lunch, because the after lunch slot apparently is not good for filling in forms. So we'll fill these in beforehand. So we'll take from 1 thereabouts until 3 o'clock, and we'll be in here. So if you come in just before 3 o'clock, we've kind of got about an hour of wrap-up time to piece together to the course and think about the next steps and action plans and things like that. So that's the plan. So we'll have a nice 2 hours, and then we'll come back in here for an hour and kind of do our goodbyes and everything like that. Okay. So Indy, can you just give us a heads up on the... I'm going to transfer this to you.
Now, unless there has been any last-minute changes, Nextdoor breaks up between 1 and 2. Yeah, they have a 1-hour break. They're running a little bit late, so it could be it's 1. Yeah, I am not sure if that means they'll start at 2, or they still say come back at 2. So the answer is you don't have 2 hours. You have less of an opportunity of a window. Is there anything to add to that? Is there any up-to-date The added information that I have for you in terms of networking is that there is quite a lot of changeover of individuals between each module of sessions. So people between 9:30 and 11, possibly about over 50% of them changed between the session that's going on now. This is for 2 reasons probably. One is maybe some people just arrived a little bit later, but secondly, there are people here that are coming because there are specific subjects that they are very interested in. Yeah? So you have the added disadvantage that you may have an overrun where there are some people who are lunching to leave and some people who have arrived and therefore haven't warmed up. Yeah? And you will have to figure that out clearly but hopefully what it will mean is that you've got slightly more people to talk to as well. Yeah? Can I just share a little bit of my networking experience this morning? So you know what went well and what didn't go well. So this morning, my networking aim was to tell as many people in the audience during break times or just before starting or just after what VTI does, what we are doing next door, no, they're not allowed to come next door, but I can just tell them and they have to believe me, and to get them to take a business card from me and some information. So the best interaction was that I spoke with a gentleman from a university in the south of India who was genuinely very interested and seems to hold a relatively senior position in the university and took all the pamphlets, and we had a good discussion, and it was a difficult discussion because there were no automatic connections we could make with one another. He was an engineer, you know, I'm in leadership management, theirs is a technology college, I spend every day in a social science university. So I had to make the most of the differences in order to build the connection to get to the point where he gave me his card, which I then took as the entry to be able to exchange cards and to say, I will contact you. The most difficult connection was that there was a lady who was, this morning was a speaker from the World Bank, Tara, I've forgotten her surname, begins with B, Bonetti, Tara Bonetti, and who's a senior economist and somebody for many reasons, not just VTI, that I would want to speak to say I'm from the London School of Economics, and the London School of Economics does work with the World Bank. And in all her answers on stage, she talked about Indian institutes. So as I was making good progress, having had to wait 40 minutes because there were a lot of people who wanted to talk to her, and her plan was to leave immediately after a session. So I waited 40 minutes, got my opportunity, we had the conversation, and right at the last minute when I thought, oh, I'm just about now ready to tell her and give her the VTI material because she's bought into the idea of what we do, it turned out she's not based in India at all, she's based in Washington DC. So I had to quickly convert the conversation as to how she might be able to influence India and those parts of a project which are of India. Because actually when she talked today about the India projects, they're one small part of her overall projects. But clearly that was a setback because I'd invested quite a lot of time and a piece of information came out very late that I didn't check earlier because I had assumed something which I assumed wrong. So I had to quickly adjust the purpose of why I was meeting her. But nevertheless, we got to the point of exchanging cards, but not material. So it was sort of a failure against the objective, but nevertheless one that you always learn from a failure or something that didn't happen as well as it could have done. Okay.
Please don't get me wrong, but won't it be an awkward situation like we all try to communicate or do networking with the other new people? So suppose what people might get 2-3 PM fellows in like 1 hour or during lunch. So won't it be an awkward situation? I just want to, it's not like, don't get me wrong.
Do you want me to be honest?
Yeah.
It is like that every day in working life. When I go to my work restaurant, Nobody wants to talk to me without a purpose. Nobody talks to the HR director without a purpose. And if I talk to somebody, nobody I'm talking to is without a purpose. Yes? And one of the great differences between being a student and a PhD student and the real world is no communication is without intent. Yeah? And I hope that none of you ever fall in the trap, because if you think it is, you'll find that somebody's just used valuable information of yours to progress themselves. So what you're about to go into is actually what it is like every day for people who work every day. Yeah, you have to have intention. Yeah? That is part of the working world. That's why it is nice to be able to go home now and again and relax. Yeah?
I'd say
And one day...
hand, though, that you are PM scholars, that's an interesting thing, and that's nice to meet people like you. So don't be, because you might want something or might want a conversation, actually you are interesting. We've all learned that your research is interesting, and that you're actually, this fellowship scheme is a really interesting, valuable thing that India has going on, so don't be afraid of selling that, getting people interested in it, promoting that. So that's a good thing to do, so don't be worried about boring people. I don't think that will happen.
What's good is, I mean, I've been telling them that this is a scheme for creme de la creme PhD students in India. And they all say, oh, really? Oh, that's really good. And in fact, they don't mind me saying that next door because it helps with their conference. So I think they're expecting wonderful things from you as you have your lunch.
Just on the timings, if it is if there is nobody there, so at 2:30ish, we'll come back here at 2:30. There's no point you just milling around. So we'll just keep an eye on things, and so if you're around from at least 2:30, we'll start earlier if we need to. But see who's there.